Hey, what's up? I'm Seth, and today I'm talking about if I would watch episode 3 of the Disney Plus series Loki with my kids. Okay, I just watched episode 3 of Loki, and I gotta say, I am liking this show. What I'm really liking is the conversation that it spurs afterwards. The hypotheses we come up with, the thoughts, and just the general conversation. We always sit down at the dinner table after watching a movie and are like, okay, this is what happened, what stood out, what's so cool? And I like asking questions and kind of figuring out what my kids think about it. My favorite hypothesis so far, now hear me out, is that the timekeepers are actually Loki, Lady Loki, and Mobius. Yeah, seems like a bit of a stretch, but my kids saw that one of the timekeepers kind of has some horn thingies, and Loki really likes the horn thingies. One of the timekeepers has what looks like a mustache, and one of the timekeepers is a woman. So it could be Lady Loki. Could be that judge lady too. We weren't quite sure. But it's really fun to hypothesize with my kids. And honestly, after we were talking about it, I was starting to get convinced. I'm like, you know what? You could be right. This could be like some kind of paradoxical Tenet type situation where they actually, create the multiverse and then have to go back and fix it. And then they set themselves up as the timekeepers, but they're really trying to take care of everything. But it's these people that we've known. I mean, is there something there? Maybe. Anyways, I've liked this show because of the conversations we've been able to have, and I like talking with my kids. I have some questions that I came up with for this episode, but more on that in a minute. First, what did I like the most from this episode for my kids? But before I get into it, I will give you just a light spoiler warning. I'm really going to try and not give too many spoilers just because I know you might be watching this to decide if you're even going to watch it or even if you're going to watch it with your kids. So I don't want to spoil the whole thing. But as I talk about what I liked, there'll be light spoilers, just little spoilers about what this episode's about. First of all, where are we at? So in the last episode, we got introduced to this evil Loki, and we find out it's a woman. So from now on, I'm going to refer to her as Lady Loki, because that's kind of catchy. I've heard people say that before, so I'm going to use it. So the end of the last episode, Lady Loki causes a bunch of chaos, where she sends these time reset devices to all these different points in time, and then Lady Loki tries to get to the TVA headquarters, and Loki follows her. So that's where this episode starts. He chases after her, they go to the TVA, they get into a bit of a fight, and then they get transported to a new location. So they're at this new location, and that's pretty much where they spend the entire episode. And that's the first thing I really liked about this episode. The first thing I really liked for my kids is that we're in a new location. So up to this point, it feels like the TVA is only correcting time on Earth, which we know in the Marvel Cinematic Universe there are hundreds of worlds, thousands of worlds, maybe millions. We don't really know the extent of it, but it's not just all about Earth. So in this episode today, they're on this new planet. It's like a purple planet. And it has this moon that's going to crash into it. And if you ever played Zelda in the 90s, you know that that cannot end well. But I thought it was really cool going to a new location. There's this impending doom. The thing is they kind of get trapped here because their little device that gets them to different places, to different times and everything, creates this cool, almost glass-looking like door. It's not working. So this whole episode, they're trying to figure out how to escape this new planet they're on. So another thing I liked in this episode for my kids is that they're getting to know Lady Loki. So you see Loki, our Loki I guess we'll call him, Tom Hiddleston, talking to Lady Loki and trying to understand who she is, and they're trying to build this relationship, and they're talking to each other. And so it's more about the journey. I know the last episode I said was a bit of a filler episode. This one feels almost the same. But there is some fun dialogue and some fun discovery, on this journey as they're trying to figure out how to get off this planet. Another thing I liked in this episode was a little surprise. It's almost a blink and you miss it, but Loki displays a new power that I'm not going to spoil. It's near the end of the episode that I thought was really cool, and it's like, what? What's happening here? And so these little surprises that come up in these episodes are really fun. I like the little surprises. And finally, so this is something just for me and my family, but they showed a train. I have a son who loves trains. He would watch anything if there's a train in it. And I like it when he sees that and he just enjoys that, and I like seeing him enjoy that. So that's something I like for my kids. Okay, so what didn't I like for my kids? First off, and this is again a little bit of a light spoiler, but there's no Mobius in this episode. No Owen Wilson. That was a letdown for me, and because there's not that witty banter. This episode's not quite as fun as the other ones. I mean, Loki still does a really good job with his dialogue and his delivery. I mean, man, Tom Hiddleston does such a good job with his character. It's a lot of fun. But I was sad that there's no Mobius. Another thing about this episode that I didn't love is it's just a little slower. But the reason is because I need to reset my expectation, and I think my kids going into it. So it's a little slower because, in the first episode we're introduced to an entire universe. The second episode's kind of just this mystery, and this one is kind of just a get from point A to point B type of episode. It's still fun, but it's a little bit slower. But I think I can correct that by talking to my kids beforehand, saying, okay, this is not going to be like an earth-shattering episode. just because when you go in with these expectations that it is going to be, you're a little disappointed. So just making sure I set those expectations. The last thing that kind of stood out a little bit in this episode was the violence. I mean, Lady Loki, she is a really good fighter, and that's kind of her solution to problems, is to fight people. So it was a little bit violent. But nothing else stood out to me that I wouldn't want my kids to see. I mean, there's no language, there's nothing sexual, there's nothing like that. But it was just a little bit violent. Okay, finally, so would I share this with my kids? Yeah, I definitely would. Just because we're already really well into it, and we're already invested in Loki, and it's a lot of fun. And you really want to know, is he a good guy or a bad guy? It's hard to tell at this point. You see him kind of creating this relationship with Lady Loki, and you don't really know if this is to help people, to hurt people. You don't know where he's going with it. And so that's kind of fun. But to help these episodes be more impactful, it's fun to ask some questions. So I would ask a question to my kids is, why is Loki building trust with Lady Loki? What is he trying to do? What do you think his motivations are? And what is his end goal? I would ask my kids that, just to kind of see what they think about what he's trying to do, make some speculations there. I would also ask, how is he building the relationship with Lady Loki? I think it's important for kids to recognize interpersonal relationship skills and kind of talk about, what's the give and take in this relationship and why. Finally, I would ask about that special spoiler power that I'm not going to talk about, but I would ask them, where do they think it came from? Again, it's a blink and you miss it type situation. So make sure you see that at the end of the episode. But I would ask my kids and speculate, where did that power come from? And how is that going to help them in maybe the next episode? So those are the fun things I like to talk about, at the dinner table later after watching a show together. I think that's tons of fun. Okay, so overall, I liked this episode. It's still a fun watch. Again, it's a little slow, but I think I just need to set that expectation that these episodes, are just getting from point A to point B. We're building up to something. It does feel like it. It feels like we are building up to something in the end here, which is pretty cool. So, that's my review of Loki. If you like this review, then hit the like below. If you have any thoughts or ideas about episode 3 of Loki, I would love to hear it in the comments. Subscribe if you like these types of reviews. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.